Carrying a firearm is not a tactical accessory. It is not a fashion statement, a political bumper sticker, or a tough guy persona you put on to impress the people around you. It is a relentless, unforgiving reality. The exact second you decide to strap that weight to your waist and walk out into the world, your margin for error drops to absolute zero. You are making a daily pact that requires complete mental and physical sharpness without a single day off. There is zero room for laziness, zero room for taking the easy way out, and absolutely no tolerance for the toxic comfort of routine. Routine breeds complacency, and complacency is exactly what puts good people in body bags. If you think simply surviving a physical violent threat is your only concern, you are gravely mistaken. Right now, the stakes are higher than they have ever been in modern history. The Supreme Court just dropped an absolute legal bombshell. They handed down a historic, unanimous 9-0 ruling that carries massive, nationwide consequences for every single individual who steps outside with a concealed weapon. Think about the gravity of that. Every single justice agreed. That kind of absolute, undeniable consensus is incredibly rare at the highest level of law. And what this mandate dictates regarding how you carry your behavioral baseline and the immediate legal jeopardy you step into the millisecond you walk out your front door is a framework you must understand flawlessly. A single miscalculation under this new judicial standard will not just cost you your life on the pavement, it will cost you your freedom and put you behind bars for the rest of your life. We are going to tear apart every hidden trap of that Supreme Court decision later in this video because you absolutely need to know exactly how to protect yourself from the legal system. But before we get to the courtroom, we have to make sure you actually survive the street. We need to build the foundation so you do not become a tragic statistic or a cautionary tale on the evening news. Consider what we are about to discuss, your mandatory pre-flight safety protocol. Only in this scenario, you are the pilot, the mechanic, and the sole person responsible for ensuring your entire life does not crash and burn in a fraction of a second. I have been carrying a firearm daily for so many years that I honestly lost track of the exact number a long time ago. And throughout all those thousands of days of uninterrupted carry, I have absorbed lessons the ugliest, darkest, and most expensive ways possible. I have experienced the humiliating fumbles, the adrenaline-spiked close calls, and those terrifying cold sweat realizations in the dead of night where you recognize that a situation was a millimeter away from turning into a catastrophic bloodbath. Therefore, every single piece of knowledge I'm about to hand you today comes directly from the unforgiving pavement. This is not comfortable classroom theory. This is not something I read on a keyboard warrior tactical forum. These are years of sweating, failing, adapting, and watching other people make fatal mistakes in ways that would make your stomach turn. Pay very close attention, because what we are going to do next is pure survival. You have embraced the unforgiving reality of the survival mindset. Now we need to confront the cold, hard truth about the physical equipment you are trusting with your heartbeat. Welcome to the betrayal of hardware. We like to think that spending $1,000 on a piece of metal and polymer buys us invincibility. It does not. The moment you assume your gear is going to work perfectly just because it is expensive is the exact moment you invite disaster into your life. Let us start with a mistake that is mathematically terrifying because of how shockingly common it is. You walk into a store, you buy a highly rated box of premium hollow point ammunition, you load your magazine, and you consider yourself armed and ready. That is not preparation. That is a blind, reckless gamble. Putting premium ammunition into your firearm without testing it is exactly like putting diesel fuel into a sports car and praying the engine figures it out. Just because the caliber printed on the cardboard box matches the numbers etched into your steel barrel does not mean those two distinct pieces of engineering are going to cooperate when the trigger breaks. Defensive hollow points have aggressive, wide profiles. Some feed ramps handle them flawlessly. Others will jam up tight on the very first round, turning your weapon into a useless brick. You will never know which category your setup falls into until you actually stand on the firing line and pull the trigger under rapid succession. If you do not run that specific expensive box of ammunition through your exact carry gun to verify perfect cycling, your firearm is not a life-saving tool. It is a highly expensive paperweight providing a fatal illusion of security. Buy the box, shoot the box, prove it works, then buy another one to actually carry. Next, we need to talk about the fragile glass sitting on top of your slide. Red dot optics have completely revolutionized modern defensive shooting. They make acquiring targets incredibly fast and keep your focus exactly where it needs to be. But here's the dirty secret the slick marketing campaigns will never tell you. They are the single most failure-prone component you can possibly attach to a weapon. A dead battery leaves you desperately searching for a glowing dot that does not exist while an attacker is closing the distance. A loose mounting screw means your optic shifts under recoil, meaning your bullet is going to impact somewhere completely different from where you are aiming. Before you walk out that door, you must verify that the glass is clean and that the battery is fully alive. And here is an insider tactic used by serious professionals who operate in high-stakes environments. Take a paint pen and draw a tiny continuous line across the head of the mounting screw directly onto the optic body. If that screw backs out even a fraction of a millimeter, that solid line breaks. You can look at it every single morning and know instantly, without a shadow of a doubt, if your zero is compromised. It takes 2 seconds and it eliminates a mechanical variable that could easily get you killed. Finally, we arrive at the most universally neglected piece of survival equipment in existence: the spare magazine. Semi-automatic pistols are mechanical feeding machines, and the magazine is the weakest link in that entire chain. If you are smart enough to carry a spare, you need to be smart enough to maintain it. Tossing a spare magazine loose into your pocket is a recipe for absolute disaster. That pocket is a dark trap for lint, dirt, coins, and debris. The moment you are fighting for your life, dumping an empty magazine and slamming that spare into the magwell, all that accumulated garbage gets shoved directly into the internal action of your gun. Exactly when you need your weapon to save you the most, you have personally fed it the exact debris it takes to induce a catastrophic malfunction. A backup plan that fails when you deploy it is not a backup plan. It is a death sentence. Inspect your spare every single morning. Ensure the feed lips are flawless, the top round is seated perfectly, and the chamber is clear of obstructions. But here is the chilling reality. Even if your hardware is completely flawless, the machine is only as reliable as the human operating it. And the human body does terrifying, unpredictable things when the sympathetic nervous system takes over and your blood turns to ice. Let me tell you about a man named Mateo and how a simple piece of winter clothing almost cost him everything he loved. Mateo was exactly the kind of guy everyone wanted to be at the indoor shooting range. He was smooth, he was incredibly fast, and his accuracy was terrifying. He could punch perfectly tight groupings into static paper targets all day long while wearing his comfortable, perfectly fitted athletic shirts. He felt invincible. But here is the brutal truth that the shooting range will never teach you. Paper targets do not ambush you in a dark parking lot at 2 in the morning. One freezing night, Mateo was walking back to his vehicle. The temperature had plummeted, so he was wearing a thick, heavy winter parka. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the wall of the alleyway. The threat was not theoretical anymore. It was real, it was armed, and it was closing the distance incredibly fast. In that exact millisecond, Mateo experienced a massive adrenaline dump. When true, visceral panic hits your system, your heart rate spikes instantaneously to 180 beats per minute. Your auditory exclusion kicks in. Your peripheral vision collapses into a dark tunnel. And most importantly, the fine motor skills in your hands completely evaporate. Your fingers turn into clumsy flippers. Mateo recognized the threat and instinctively reached for his perfectly maintained expensive firearm, but his hand did not find the grip. Instead, his hand violently collided with the thick, unfamiliar fabric of his winter coat. The heavy zipper snagged. The pocket angle trapped his wrist. A draw that normally took him exactly 1 second on a sterile, well-lit firing line suddenly turned into 3 agonizing, desperate seconds of fumbling. He was literally fighting his own clothing while a predator was sprinting toward him. By sheer force of panic, Mateo finally ripped the gun from the holster and punched it outward. He aligned his sights on the center mass of the attacker and pulled the trigger. Click. Nothing happened. Mateo had committed the ultimate unforgivable sin of concealed carry. He had left his house without a round in the chamber. He had convinced himself of the lethal lie that an empty chamber was somehow a safety feature. He thought he would always have the time and the mental clarity to rack the slide before engaging. But under extreme, terrifying stress, you have neither. With shaking, sweaty hands, Mateo desperately tried to rack the slide of his pistol. His grip slipped. He short-stroked the action. The weapon jammed completely. He was standing in a dark alley holding a useless piece of metal. Mateo survived that night by pure blind luck. The sound of the struggle and the sight of the weapon were enough to make the attacker turn and run. But the realization of what almost happened haunted Mateo for years. He realized he was prepared for a game, not for survival. This is the lesson you must burn into your memory right now. Every single outfit you wear is a brand new tactical variable. A tailored suit, a bulky sweater, or a heavy winter coat completely changes the geometry of how you access your weapon. You absolutely must take 60 seconds every morning to practice a dry draw in the exact clothing you are wearing that day. Make sure the garment clears perfectly. Furthermore, if you are carrying a weapon for self-defense, there must be a round in the chamber. An unloaded gun is a liability that requires perfectly functioning fine motor skills to activate. In a fight for your life, you do not have fine motor skills. You do not have an extra second. You do not have a second chance. But let us pause and look at the bigger picture, because the physical danger is only half of the nightmare. Imagine if Mateo was not just facing a criminal in that alley. Imagine if police officers responded to a call, came around the corner, and saw a man frantically fumbling with his jacket, acting erratically, and struggling wildly with a firearm. How does that panicked, unpredictable behavior look to law enforcement? What does the law say about how that exact moment is judged? This is where your survival on the street collides violently with the legal system. And this brings us directly to the 9-0 Supreme Court ruling that just changed the rules of the game for every single one of us. Imagine those flashing red and blue lights reflecting off the brick walls of that dark alley. The police arrive at the scene of the chaos. They do not know Mateo. They do not know he is a father, a hard worker, or the victim of an ambush. All they see is a sweating, frantic man struggling with a jammed weapon, fighting his own winter coat, and acting with complete, unpredictable desperation. How is that chaotic snapshot judged in the eyes of the law? This is exactly where the recent Supreme Court ruling drops like a hammer on the concealed carry community. The highest court in the nation issued a unanimous 9-0 decision that permanently cements the totality of the circumstances standard for any law enforcement encounter involving an armed citizen. You need to understand the terrifying weight of that legal phrase. Totality of the circumstances. What does that actually mean for you? It means the justice system is no longer just looking at the final 3 seconds of an altercation. They are not just evaluating the moment the trigger was pulled. They are going to dissect your entire behavioral profile from the absolute first millisecond the encounter begins. Every movement of your hands, the pitch of your voice, your level of compliance, and your physical control over your firearm are being recorded by body cameras and will be scrutinized frame by frame in a sterile courtroom by a prosecutor who has never been in a real street fight. This legal reality connects directly back to everything we discussed about equipment and training. The gear checks from Part 2 and the clothing drills from Part 3 are not just tactical advice anymore. They are your legal armor. Think about it from the perspective of a responding officer or a jury. If you are violently fumbling with your holster because you never practiced clearing that specific jacket, you look out of control. If your red dot optic is dead and you are waving the muzzle around erratically trying to find your sight picture, you look reckless. If you are struggling wildly to rack the slide under stress because you carried on an empty chamber, you look exactly like a panicked threat. In the eyes of the law and law enforcement, panic looks indistinguishable from guilt. Incompetence looks exactly like a lethal danger to public safety. Your lack of preparation is building a negative legal record against you in real time. Now, picture the exact opposite scenario. Picture the carrier who has relentlessly drilled their draw from concealment. They verified their optic is zeroed. They know without a doubt there is a round in the chamber. Because their physical preparation is flawless, their mind has the bandwidth to remain calm. When the police arrive, that person is completely composed. Their weapon is safely holstered or placed on the ground. Their hands are clearly visible. They disclose their armed status with a steady, controlled voice. Every single deliberate action that prepared carrier takes builds an undeniable, real-time legal record of a responsible, lawful citizen. They are projecting discipline. The Supreme Court ruling does not grant you a magical shield of immunity just because you have a concealed carry permit sitting in your leather wallet. A permit is just a piece of plastic. The ruling creates a microscopic legal lens through which your behavior is judged. Your physical preparation dictates your mental calmness under extreme stress. Your mental calmness dictates your external behavioral record, and your behavioral record determines whether you go home to sleep in your own bed with your family or whether you spend the next 20 years locked inside a concrete cage wondering where it all went wrong. You are not just preparing to win a gunfight. You are preparing to survive the legal nightmare that follows. And that brings us to the ultimate reason why we put ourselves through this demanding lifestyle in the first place. We do not endure this grueling preparation because we are paranoid. We do not choose to carry a weapon every single day because we are obsessed with violence or because we are desperately waiting for a chance to be the hero in some imaginary Hollywood action movie. We do it for the exact opposite reason. We carry a firearm because we have a profound, unbreakable reverence for peace. We carry because there are people in this world who love us, who rely on us, and who expect us to walk back safely through that front door every single night. Think about the faces of the people you care about the most. Think about your family, your children, your spouse, or your closest friends. When you strap that holster to your body in the quiet hours of the morning, you are making a silent, sacred promise to them. You are promising that you absolutely refuse to let them or yourself become defenseless victims to the chaos of a violent world. You are taking on the heavy burden of being the shield. But a promise without relentless preparation is just a comforting lie. The strict discipline we talked about today, testing your ammunition, verifying your optic, practicing your draw in heavy clothing, and ensuring there is a live round in that chamber, is not a tactical burden. That daily discipline is the invisible love you show your family. It is the ultimate, undeniable expression of personal responsibility. When you take those extra 60 seconds every morning to guarantee your gear and your mind are flawless, you are proving that their lives are worth your absolute best effort. You are ensuring that if the terrifying day ever comes when evil steps out of the dark, you will not be a helpless, fumbling bystander like Mateo almost was. You will be a calculated, calm, and lethal protector. The mainstream politicians and the massive tech algorithms sitting in Silicon Valley absolutely do not want you to hear this message. They actively suppress this kind of empowering content because they prefer a society that is entirely dependent, not a society built of strong, highly capable, and independent protectors. We have to fight back against that digital suppression, and you are the absolute front line of that battle. If this message woke you up today, if it forced you to confront a dangerous flaw in your daily routine, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. Do not let a nameless algorithm decide what information you are allowed to see. Then, I want you to go down into the comments and be brutally honest with me. Have you ever had a Mateo moment? Which of the mistakes we covered today have you been guilty of? Have you ever walked out the door with an empty chamber, a dead battery, or a winter coat that trapped your hand? Drop your confession below, because your honesty might be the exact reality check another carrier needs to read to save their own life. And most importantly, share this video. Send this link directly to at least one other person in your life who carries a weapon. Send it to your brother, your father, your shooting partner. Survival knowledge only has power if it actually reaches the people standing on the front lines. Here at Insert Your Channel Name Here, we do not just review metal and plastic. We forge the mindset required to be the ultimate protectors of our homes, our families, and our freedom. The street does not care if you are tired, and the courtroom does not care if you were scared. Stand strong, stay disciplined, and never walk out that door unprepared. Stay safe, and I will see you on the next one.